Hey guys, Casual Crono here. When creating teams to defeat super bosses, not only do you need to level up characters, do their character quests to gain their skills, and equip them with really strong weapons and armor, probably the biggest influence is the Grasta and the Grasta upgrades that your characters can equip. However, Grasta and ore are all over the place. Where in the world do you even start to start getting the supplies that you need in order to equip any team? Whether it's a crystal team, thunder team, fire, wind, water, earth, magic, etc. Where do you go to get this ore and this Grasta? Well, in this video, I'm going to try and summarize where you go so that you can not only collect ores and Grastas for your current teams, but also to prepare for the future so that when that super awesome new character comes out, you already have the supplies on hand to buff them up and make them awesome. So let's go ahead and get started. Once you complete Chapter 55, you have the ability to access the present Garulea dungeon. On your map, if you go to the Garulea continent, you will see the present Garulea continent dungeon. It takes 2 green keys to go to. When you enter it, you're given a choice of multiple paths. You can go to this area or this area, and the areas are always randomized. What you want to do, if you're first starting out, you want to go to areas that have junk. The Inari Plateau, Kunlun Mountains, and Vermilion Road. So if one of those appears as your choice, go to that one, because you want to try and get as much junk as you can. Occasionally, and it doesn't happen every run, you will have the option to go to Nagsham. When you have enough junk, this is where you want to go to try and get Grasta. So when you go to Nagsham, there's 2 vendors here. One, the most important one, is inside the inn. If you go to this inn, the discovery-loving youth, if you haven't bought him out, will offer several pieces of Grasta. He only has 40 items total. So if you buy an item, it will not show up again, and it's random to which 3 appear. These are the Grasta that are shareable. It's the weapon Grasta that match with the elements. So for example, Power of Wind for Katana, which once you fully upgrade it, will improve all Katana users' damage if they are Wind Katana users. I mentioned that one since I use Sesta a lot. So this is where you go to get that type of Grasta. And if you're looking for one specific Grasta, let's say that you want the Power of Wind Katana, and he doesn't sell it right away, try and buy him out. Every single trip you go, he randomizes his choices, and therefore at some point he will offer the Wind Katana Grasta. And the more you buy, the less choices he has. If you buy 20 of his Grasta, then he only has 20 left to randomize. If you buy 47 of his Grasta, the remaining 3 are the only ones that are going to appear. So you want to try and buy every single piece of Grasta that this person sells. And that does take a lot of runs because each Grasta is 20 junk. The other vendor is outside. He sells cheaper Grasta, and he has unlimited amounts. He sells occasionally just elemental type Grastas that in the end game aren't really used at all. He has some HP regen, which gives a little bit of health, so if you're relatively new to the game and you're looking for a way to boost your health, those types of Grasta can help. However, he is also the only vendor in the game that sells the Power of Nothing Grasta, and it improves non-type attacks. Now, endgame-wise, people tend to use the Pain and Poison Grasta, but if you happen to be starting out and you have Benedict or Shanghua, characters that use non-type attacks, This is the elemental Grasta, and I say elemental even though it's not really elements, but this is the Grasta that will boost them until you get the Pain Poison Grasta. And this guy here in Nagsham is the only vendor for that type of Grasta in the game as of July 2024. So your goal in present Garulea is to run it over and over and over again, get as much junk as you want, which means you are choosing Inari Plateau, Kunlun Mountains, and Vermilion Road every single time one of those appears. And whenever you get Nagsham, you go inside the inn and try and buy everything this person has. Your ultimate goal is to see him say that he has nothing left to trade. And that way, no matter what characters are released in the future, you'll have the elemental shared Grasta available to them to make them more powerful. If you happen to bring along Azami, she has a chance of getting light points from this dungeon as well. Once you finish Chapter 66, you now have access to the next 2-key green dungeon, and that is Antiquity's Garulea Continent Dungeon. If you have Geru, he can get his points here as well, so try to include him if it doesn't mean sacrificing some rewards. Like present Garulea, it gives you choices. Some locations give monster femurs, that's the collectible item. Other locations do not. So, like before, you want to try and get as many monster femurs as possible. The 3 locations that drop monster femurs are Hokishi Forest, Taugana Mountain Trail, and Korichi Cove. And just like in present Garulea, they appear as sparklies on the ground. So when you're trying to collect all the Grasta here, you want to try and choose those 3 maps whenever you're given the choices. In the Antiquity dungeon, the rare city you're hoping to see is Zami. It doesn't appear every run, but it does occasionally appear. And when you go there, there's again 2 vendors that you want to visit. One outside, who doesn't have a limited stock. He will always, it doesn't matter if you buy him out, he's going to have more. He has Power of Regens, which give health, and various debuff resistances. The more interesting vendor is inside. They have a limited stock, so you can buy them out, but this is the vendor that you can go to buy Power of Pains and Power of Poisons. So this is the guy that you want to buy everything from. Like present Garulea dungeon, he has a limited stock. I think it's 50 if I remember right. So if you don't see something that you're looking for right away, like Power of Pain for staff, go ahead and buy what he does have, and it's more likely that it'll appear on a future run. It's going to take a lot of runs anyway to collect all of the monster femurs that you need. But this is where you go for all of your Power of Pains and Poisons. The end rewards can occasionally yield a Power of Pain or a Power of Poison for a specific weapon type as well. If you are in Antiquity Garulea dungeon and you find Dogu's Domain, it's the rarest of the areas. When you go to Dogu's Domain, there's no enemies. You just go and talk to the one person that's here. They will give you a Dogu for 100 Git. That Dogu is used at the start of the next run and can result in giving you items that have 300 health for specific weapons, the HP recovery and MP recovery Grasta. After you've finished present and Antiquity Garulea, the next available one is Future Garulea. In the future Garulea, another dungeon, there's no one vendor to clear out like there were in the first two. So you don't have to sit around and collect altered ore until you buy someone out. Notable things in future Garulea: in the Angle settlement, if you go to the elderly man, he can reward you if you have spirit stone fragments, which are the rare items here, but he can give you the guidance ring, guidance bracelet, and guidance necklace. Those pieces of armor improve your type attack by 10%, and you'll see me frequently equipping a DPS character with one of those. So it's worth your while to go here and run future Garulea enough so that you eventually get 3 spirit stone fragments and get all of the gear from this old guy. Another benefit of future Garulea's dungeon is that, again, in the very first area, there's a vendor who sells Rose with Thorns. It's a Grasta upgrade that improves damage by 50%, but it also increases your mana consumption. You will see a lot of Superboss teams, not just mine, but all over the internet, that use Rose with Thorns as their upgrade, and you can buy as many as you want. So if you're short Rose with Thorns, you can go to this vendor here in the Angle settlement and just run future Garulea enough to be able to afford however many stones you want. Every 4 runs, this guy appears as well, and he gives you a free reversion ore. So if you're just starting out and you need reversion ores, which allow you to undo enhancements on Grasta, just keep running future Garulea, and this guy in the Wastelands gives you, it's an unlimited supply, but you have to run it every 4 times. Unlike previous dungeons, the horrors here also can drop ore. So if you have the ability to kill the horrors, you can speed up your altered ore progress. The last thing of note in this dungeon is in Sky Fortress Isa, there's another vendor, and he sells the HP ore. Stick it on a Grasta, and you get 300 extra health. So you put it on 3 Grasta, and you get 900 extra health. You see me using this ore a lot. This is one of the easiest ways to beef up health on your team. Stick it on a Grasta that already has 300 health, and you gain 300 more for 600 total. Do that with 3, and there's 1800 health points that can be added to any character you want. He has an unlimited supply as well. So as long as you run this place enough times, you are guaranteed to be able to buy as many HP ores as you want. And the final things to note about the future Garulea dungeon is once you defeat the final boss of whatever area you go to, you have a chance of getting all of those ores as final rewards. Also, if you have Serene, you have a chance of giving her a light point. So let's see what we got today. Nothing particularly helpful, but it is a good source of dormant ores. Aha, but we did get Serene's light point. So if you have Serene, throw her in the back, throw her wherever, and she might slowly gain a few light point levels. And that's really about it about the future Garulea dungeon. You run it for the guaranteed HP ores, things like that. Get the guidance gear, the guidance bracelet, ring, and necklace. But as far as the dungeons, a lot of the drops from future Garulea are also found in the next dungeon. And so running that one can also reward you with things like the HP ores. However, it has the coveted Bullseye Grasta. Completing Chapter 84 allows you access to the Underworld dungeon. And if you have Altina, she has a chance of getting her shadow points here. So if you can afford it, try to include her as well. The currency for the Underworld is found in this very first area, 0 point. The horrors drop it, and there's sparklies. But the currency here is Sea Drift. So try and collect as much of that as you possibly can. The notable items to purchase here, there is the opportunity to buy Jadeites if you need to. They're kind of expensive. 1 cat dogu, which is the rare item, or 180 sea drifts. So, but if you're desperate, you can get Jadeites at this vendor right outside on the first floor. Probably the most important item, well, one of the two, is in here. The right vendor sells bullseye ore. Damage increases 50% as long as you're not blowing the another force gauge. Again, like Rose with Thorns, pretty much every Superboss team that I've seen used, my own, other people, they use bullseye ores. And here, there's an unlimited supply. You can buy them for 180 sea drifts or 1 cat dogu. And you can buy as many as you want. So go to town. This is a very reliable source of bullseye ores. There's also a chance when you finish the dungeon, bullseye ore might be one of the rewards that drops. The final item that you should definitely get before you consider this dungeon complete is the crooked-tailed cat key. The guy here on the second floor, Present Man, sells it for 2 cat dogus. Once you get that key, when you go to each of the remaining ending areas, that key will open up an extra area. So for example, if I go to Ark of the Underworld, this area gets unlocked, and there's a treasure chest in that area. And the items that you can get are the Oriental armors, the Oriental bracelet, the Oriental necklace, and the Oriental ring. They're great because they improve resistances, both type and physical, by 10%. So a lot of times you'll see tanks equipped or support characters equipped with the Oriental gear. So in summary, when you are able to access the Underworld, go and get the Oriental gear. Be sure to pick up a lot of bullseye ores along the way. At the end of the run, there's a chance that you might get bullseye, Rose with Thorns, other helpful ores from the final bosses as well. When I did these dungeons, I ran Future Garulea enough that I got my 3 pieces of armor, and then I left that place and I ran Underworld almost exclusively, because this place has a chance of dropping pretty much everything that was in Future Garulea, plus bullseye, which I got none of in this particular run. When you complete Chapter 92, you gain access to Hollow and other dungeons, the first being Omegapolis. Omegapolis gives you a chance to raise Ash Tier's light points. So if you have Ash Tier and you can keep her included while maxing out your rewards, by all means do so. The main currency for Omegapolis is in this first little area, and like the others, they appear as little sparklies on the ground, and you collect rusted parts. Rusted parts are needed to buy most everything. The horrors in this area also drop rusted parts.
My sin is that I'm too powerful.
So if you have the ability to kill the horrors, you can collect rusted parts a little bit faster. The rare item, which appears up here in Moonsteel Forest, are golden screws. If I remember the percentages right, it's about a 5% chance that you'll have access to the golden screw area each time you do a run. And those are used for the Elpis armors, which are probably, in my opinion, among the best in the game. Omegapolis's underbelly doesn't have really that much of value for sale, in my opinion. It does have one item. You can get the old key, which opens up certain areas in each dungeon. Those areas, instead of leading to armor this time, however, lead to sidekick equipment. So by all means, go ahead and go for it, but sidekick equipment, not quite as important as the Elpis gear. Most of the things that you want to buy are in the Omegapolis mid-layer. This random vendor here, just labeled Man, sells for an unlimited supply the Light Shadow HP ore. If your light points are 50, it gives you 300 health, and shadow points. So if your light or shadow points for your character are above 50, this ore will give you more health than the HP ore that was found in the Underworld and future Garulea. I tend to use the HP ores for my tanks, as long as they have more than 50 light. And up here, when you are able to access this room, this vendor, for 1 golden screw each, will trade you for one of the Elpis armors. So basically, to get the Elpis ring, Elpis necklace, and Elpis bracelet, you just have to hope that you get lucky 3 times and get 3 golden screws, and you have the Elpis armors. The next area of importance is this room right here. If you have a shade team or are trying to develop a shade team, you want to visit this vendor, also named Man. He has the shareable weapon shade Grastas available for sale. So if you want, for example, your entire team's bow characters to have a shade type attack improvement, this is where you go. You can exchange it for rusted parts or a golden screw. Once you buy an item, it's gone for good, so you can basically buy this guy out. In particular, most of the shade characters, Yakumo, Iffy, etc., are staff users. So if nothing else, go ahead and buy the Dark Shade staff, Grasta, and upgrade it with your dormant ore, everything, and then you can give it to someone in the back row, and you've improved Yakumo's damage by 30%, for example. In summary, once you access Omegapolis, you're probably going to be running it for a while. You definitely want all 3 Elpis armors. Depending on what shade characters you use, you may want to get the shade shared Grasta. There are sidekick items available here, and then finally the Light Shadow HP and MP ores. I personally haven't used the MP ores much, but I use the Light Shadow HP ores quite a lot. Pretty much every single tank of mine has those equipped. And then the end, as far as end rewards, the Light Shadow HP ores can actually drop as end rewards as well, so you might get lucky and get a few that way. You also get a lot more fragments of attack, life, and support. You'll see you can get like 90, 60, and so forth. The previous dungeons don't drop nearly that much, so if you're hurting for fragments, running Omegapolis can eventually cure that problem. The next step of our Green Key dungeon journey is Entrana. Once you complete chapter 104, you have access to the Entrana dungeon. And if you have Kamlanaz, which you should since he's a free character, this is where he gets his points. So try to include him in the lineup if you can. The primary currency in Entrana is Catnap. You can get it through Sparkles and Horrors as usual. In the Entrana dungeon, there's 3 main categories of items that you should be collecting, 2 of which are in the town of Entrana itself. In the top right corner of the town is a man. Hi, man. The rare item in Entrana is Nepeta, and this guy sells the Dryad armors, the Dryad necklace, bangle, and ring, and he trades basically 1 for each Nepeta. So you want to run Entrana enough times that you get at least 3 of the Nepetas, and you want to buy him out. Those particular armors are extremely helpful in a lot of boss fights. The second vendor in the town is over here on the left. This girl sells all of the power of crystal weapons, and these are all shareable. So, for example, Lily is a sword user. You would want to buy the power of crystal sword for her, and that way you could give it to one of the reserve characters and that boosts her damage. So she sells all of these for either 180 catnaps or 1 nepeta. If you haven't gotten the Dryad armors, I would recommend holding off on the nepetas. So look at your crystal characters, look particularly at which ones do damage, Lily, Alma for example, and you want to eventually probably buy her out as well, but start off with the power of crystals for the ones that you need. The third set of Grasta that you need to be collecting is in Torliton, and it's in the inn. If you go inside the inn and hang a left, there's an old man. Now I've bought him out already, but what he sells are the enhance if max HP elements. So enhance if max HP fire, or enhance if max HP thunder, etc. So when your thunder characters have maximum health, they do more damage. And you get the Grasta by buying this guy out. So in the dungeon Entrana, those are the 3 main sets of Grasta and items you need to be looking for. The power of crystals, the Dryad armor set, and then the enhance if max HP elements set. You want to try and get pretty much all of it, except maybe the crystal ones that you don't need right now. As far as completion rewards, the Entrana dungeon actually doesn't really drop much of anything useful. It can drop dormant and inversion ores, but aside from that, it really just, it doesn't have the Grastas, the ores, etc. that drop in other dungeons that are particularly helpful. You get a lot of fragments, gold, things like that, but so don't feel pressured to max out rewards. For example, here I didn't really get anything useful. Kamlanaj can get his points here, as I mentioned, and of course you can still get treatises and stuff like that occasionally to drop. The last of the the 2 green key dungeons that's available just came out recently. Remember, this is being filmed July 2024. There might be more, or there should be more things in the future. But we have Jasmond. Jasmond gives Fine a chance to increase her her shadow points. So if you can bring her along, go ahead and do so. The currency in Jasmond, found in these sparkle areas and by defeating horrors, is Broomseed. The rare currency is an item known as Witch's Tears. So you come over to Parmonium Meadows and you collect all the sparklies, defeat the horrors, and try to collect as much currency as possible. Back in the Solata district, if you go to the top right house, this is where you can spend the Witch's Tears. Well, technically you can spend them anywhere, but this is the guy that only takes Witch's Tears. And he sells the armors, the leopard bracelet, necklace, and ring. These items improve type attacks based on light shadow points. So if you have a damaging character that has a very high light or shadow point, and they do type attacks, then this gear will definitely boost their damage. It also increases their combo rate, which improves their damage in like AF gauges and so forth. Now, since it's type attack, it won't benefit Shangwa or Benedict or like certain other types of attacks, like some of Aldo's attacks. So it has to be a type attack. But this armor can be very powerful if you have characters with high light shadow rates. The next area we're going to is the lower left, in this room. Now, the traditional way to set up bosses, or a boss team, is to have 3 power of pains of some kind, or 3 power of poisons, or some mix and match if you have pain and poison on the boss. So typically, you don't want to have any Grasta equipped that aren't pain or poison related. These guys are selling, well, this guy is selling power of element. It improves your fire type attack and improves your damage when your hit points are maxed. And there's 1 of each. Now, is this combination better than replacing a pain Grasta? I'm not sure. And from what I can tell, they're not shareables. So the elderly man in the house might be selling Grasta worth getting. So keep an eye on the wiki to see if those would be worthwhile. Right now, I don't see much of a justification for replacing a power of pain or power of poison Grasta for one of those. Aside from those 2 vendors, Jasmond really doesn't have much for sale that helps Superboss teams. With all of these areas, Omegapolis, Entrana, all the other dungeons, there's a lot of other items that you can buy with all the respective goods. And the recent ones do have unlimited supplies of Jadeites of attacks, lives, and supports. So if you're in desperate need of upgrading some of your Grasta, you could run some of these dungeons and buy out more Jadeites. That's always an option. But in general, this video I wanted to highlight exactly what vendors in each of these dungeons you should definitely hit on your path to forming a really, really powerful super boss team. The other vendors are basically just ways to waste whatever currencies the respective dungeons have. Jasmond has some very interesting ores that drop as completion rewards. And I'm not sure, they're all relatively new as of this recording, so I'm not sure which are the best to use or if it's worth replacing existing ores. Typically, super bosses, whoever your DPS is, like Sebastia here, would have a bullseye ore, a rose with thorns ore, and the third ore upgrade is kind of sort of whatever. It's somewhat dependent. And Jasmond drops a lot of interesting things. These Power of Fate ores will improve damage for their respective element up to 15% based on light shadow points. So if you have, I just got 2 of them. If you have a crystal user that is maxed out with price shadow points, knowing the crystal users, this would improve their damage by 15%. Other ores that drop are things like Resonant Power Light or Resonant Power Shadow ore, and that's damage for each light ally in the party or each shadow ally in the party. It doesn't matter how many light or shadow points they just have to be a light or shadow. So if you're running a full shadow team and you equipped the Resonant Power Shadow ore, then you would have an extra 12% damage on top of whatever you were doing. Since these are ores, these would affect that one particular character, as far as I'm aware. It even drops things like water ores, thundering ores, torn earth ores, which improve damage by 10% in their respective elements, as long as you're in that stance. If you've accessed Sebastia's lab and have access to the battle simulator, all of these have rewards, and some of them have really, really strong Grasta rewards. So, clear state. So for example, the most recent one, if I clear it within 25 turns, I get the Power of Offense for Shadow. If I do 900 million damage in one hit outside of another force, which that bullseye ore really helps with, I can get the Power of Offense for Thunder. And if I clear all the other missions, then I can get Power of Offense Crystal. And there's many other ores and Grastas, actually mostly Grastas, that are available in a lot of these trials. And some of them are available in the easier trials as well. Now that I've shared with you where a lot of these ores and Grastas are found, let's kind of put it all together. Here is a typical crystal team. Lily is the main damage dealer, so she has Grastas that are related to pain. She has the Power of Agony, Power of Pain, and Gleaming Power of Pain. The Power of Agony and Pains can be found in Antiquity or future Garulea dungeons. The Gleaming Power of Pain happens to be an award from the Astral Archives. The Bullseye Ore is found in the Underworld dungeon. The Rose with Thorns upgrade is found in future Garulea or Underworld. So you could run, for example, Antiquity to get the Power of Pains, and then you could run Underworld to get the Bullseye and Rose with Thorns. And you don't necessarily need the Gleaming Power of Pain, though it's a little bit more helpful, but you could just run those two dungeons and get her equipped with everything you need. Melissa has the Power of Offense for Crystal, Enhance if Max HP Crystal, and an MP Restore Katana. The first two just upgraded, and the last one, an HP ore was thrown in. The purpose of the last one was to raise her health above 5,000, just to make her a little more survivable. So the Power of Offense Crystal is found in the Battle Simulator in Sebastia's lab. The Enhance if Max HP Crystal is found in the Entrana dungeon. And the MP Restore, and it doesn't have to be MP, it could be an HP Restore or really anything that has 300 health. That's the main purpose. But the MP Restores are found in present Garulea dungeon. The HP Plus ore is found in future Garulea and Underworld. So that's the locations for all of that. Mistrari has sound bodies equipped and just upgraded with dormant ores to make them active for everybody. Sound bodies are found everywhere in the game. Some are behind bosses, some are just kind of in the overworld, and some are found in the battle simulator. So if you spend time in the battle simulator, you're going to collect some sound bodies that will probably be helpful. The one that she doesn't have, that sound body, Resonant Power Shadow, that is a reward from the battle simulator, and that's one of the harder ones to get. So just FYI. And then Alma, she is the tank, so she's designed to have lots of health to help her survive when she's not in her Alchemaic high. She has a Power of Rebirth, which provides regeneration. Then she has MP consumption and HP restore. Part of the reasons for those, each one has that base of 300 health. So the Power of Rebirth is found in the battle simulator. MP consumption is found in some specific areas, but you could just have 2 HP restore bows, and that would be fine. And that one is something you can get from present Garulea dungeon. The Light Shadow HP ore upgrades are all found in Omegapolis, and that's because she has over 50 shadow. If Alma did not have over 50 shadow points, if she had under 50, then the ore that I would use would be the HP Plus ore, which you can get from future Garulea or Underworld. Since she has more than 50, then the Light Shadow HP ore gives her more health, and therefore is the better choice. Melina has Almighty Power Grastas as well, and they, as I mentioned, are kind of all over the place, just like the sound bodies. But some are in the battle simulator, and some are behind super bosses, some are in the overworld, etc. If you go to the Another Eden wiki, you can look up where to find all of these Grasta. Some are actually really easy to get. And then the other reserve character, Annabelle, She has Power of Crystal Sword, Enhance if Max HP Sword, and Enhance at Low HP Sword. I usually like to pair those together because when I'm fighting a super boss, sometimes I'm at full health, sometimes I'm about to die. So that way, no matter what, I can have a somewhat consistent level of damage. The Power of Crystal Sword comes from Entrana. The Enhance if Max HP Sword is from the present Garulea dungeon. And the Enhance at Low HP Sword, actually, if you go to Flotsam Isle, if you have access to that location, you can just buy it from a vendor there for 4,800 bearings. So no dungeons required to collect those. And that's pretty much all of the Grasta and ore upgrades for all 6 characters. That's where you go to get them. A lot of Antiquity, Future, Omegapolis, Underworld runs, and some battle simulations, and that's kind of the thought process on collecting Grasta and collecting ore for upgrades. I hope this helps you in planning what to do with your green keys, and maybe encouraging you to spend a little bit more time in the battle simulator if you haven't been. But that's how a lot of the people that defeat super bosses, that's where they go to get all of these ores and Grasta. So I hope this helps. Casual Crono, signing out.